Starting pitcher dynasty rankings, part 1. No time to waste. It's time for dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats, what's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement, check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see, what's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head, please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers, ain't no minor league, this is major. Yeah, Dingers, let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just the Jesus Lizard that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs, joined as always by Robert Baseball III from the Murder Room. What's happening?
Nothing. I told you everything before. I actually tried to get the intro so fast, I didn't even say episode 231, the Nick Senzel average episode. I hurt the opening just like Nick Senzel hurts himself and his team and fantasy owners. I apologize though. He won't. Anyway,
subtle.
Yeah, I was gonna say I sound a little bitter tonight. Anyway, Ty,
you sound like you have shares of Nick Senzel. That's what it sounds like.
Not as many as I used to, for a good reason.
I'm good. It's been a busy couple of weeks. This is like peak season work wise, so we're just kind of rolling through. It's been a wild time. Two kids at home. Like it's been a stretch. So ready to talk starting pitching, which Robbie, third base, starting pitching. That's my wheelhouse. This is where I like to live. We're gonna go top 50 tonight. We're gonna go backwards. Normally we give you the deep ones
said top
first.
65.
Sorry, you're right. We did say top 65. It sounded like 50, but then it was actually 65.
So boom, you listeners, you already got 15 bonus guys coming your way tonight.
That's right. You're welcome.
Compliment
to Rob. There you go. So we're gonna go backwards this year. We're gonna jump into the top half first. Then we're gonna give you the deep ones in the next episode. So I think in order to get truly into the deep, Rob.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
That was lame. Not a great cork pop this evening.
Yeah.
But we're just going to keep riding the basil train. It's a good one. When in doubt, stick with the old trusty. Did you just dust off your beer? Did that just happen?
It's not even my beer, man.
What
I'm
is
just
it?
Gonna have Jaeger straight from the bottle tonight. Because I wasn't feeling it. Like, I'm tired. I told you before, I was just getting ready to leave work today. My boss came in and was like, let's do your, year-end review. And I'm like,
the review went well, though, when you go straight to the Jaeger.
Yeah. Well, overall, he was quite happy with the performance and, bringing positivity to the work environment and whatnot. But it just flattened me out. So we had a busy night. The kid had to go to his swimming lessons, and that extra 90 minutes I lost just really crushed the day. So anywho, now I'll crush some Jaeger.
Work question for you. I've never asked you this. Are you a no whistle chef?
Oh
or
my
is that
God.
just really old school?
No, you do not whistle in my kitchen.
Yeah. What is the actual story
shit
behind that?
All right.
I don't actually know.
And thus 4.5 minutes in ends the shortest episode attempt we had. So the reason why you don't whistle in the kitchen varies. When I was an apprentice, this is what I was told. I'm whistling in the kitchen. I'm peeling, I don't know, let's just say I'm peeling carrots. I'm loving life. This is what I want to do. This is before there was the hashtag, right? So it was just chef life. It wasn't hashtag chef life. And I'm whistling, and my chef comes over beside me and he says, did you know that in prison, whistling is a sign of freedom? I was like, no, I had no idea. That's interesting. He said, you are mine, and you are not leaving here until I tell you you can. stop fucking whistling. You don't have any freedom. And I don't swear much on this podcast, but that is the story as it was told to me, that you don't whistle in a kitchen just like you don't whistle in prison, because you are in that environment, and that's just not allowed. That was how I was told. You were not allowed to whistle. Um, I also have been in kitchens where there's music, lots of music, loud music. Kitchens where there was not allowed to be music, and then when cell phones started to become a thing with music on them, or iPods, um, people could have it just at their station, and you would like put it inside a cup, and it could be like, a little bit of noise. And now, it really depends. Like, depending on the kitchen you're in, that could be. I prefer silence. That's what I like, or talk about food. I don't like random chit chat, sure, but like realistically, just not music so loud you can't hear each other. But there are a lot of people who just love the tunes. So,
Okay.
I mean, I always recommend listening to dingers in your kitchen.
That's right.
Why
Always.
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But anyway,
and let's get right into the kitchen here, Robbie. We're talking, really the top half of the pitching crop here. So, SP1, SP2 with some fringe guys that are going to be on the border. We're taking 65 and in. And Robbie, you get the pleasure of breaking in our first group here today.
Yeah. So the only two other things I quickly had to do for housekeeping purposes, Twitter, find us at Dingers Pod. The whatever it's called that Baseball Pods does, the podcast tournament bracket that he does every March. It's coming back. We're going to be back in it. We did win around last year. Thank you to those who were on Twitter and voted. Love to get that support again this year. It was nice taking out somebody who gets paid to do what we just do and dominate for fun. So that was great. Let's have two wins.
And actually, Robbie, on the Twitter side, hit us up at Dingers Pod if you got any great ways for us to troll our competitors this year. We had a little fun with that last year. Accepting ideas. I have one cooking, Robbie. I haven't even disclosed to you yet that I think we're gonna potentially have some fun with. So just waiting on some other ideas to corroborate whether this is the best one or not.
Always open for positive ideas, definitely. And I know since last year, several podcasts have now run their course and petered out over the last 12 months. Which just goes to show, Ty, the pandemic podcasting is starting to come to an end. People who did have time don't anymore. And we have been going at this for 4 fantasy baseball off seasons. We are pre-pandemic podcast. Anywho, the other thing, Ty, is our joke of the day, which I know you don't care about, but I'm bringing it to you. So this is fun. Okay. It's also food related. I was looking for something baseball related, but I figured, they're just not that great out there. Anyway, what do you call a fake noodle? You got a lot of gluten-free people out there in the world. They want substitution food. What do you call a fake noodle?
Yeah, nothing.
An impasta.
Oh, geez. I actually knew that one, but it was so bad I forgot it. I heard one the other day that I'll share since this is your segment. So what? How does The Rock go pee? Like the movie star wrestler,
yeah,
The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson. I don't know.
He Dwayne's his Johnson.
Oh.
Yeah, terrible. So
I guess it's only good for the person telling it.
Yeah, right.
I think I see your side now.
Yeah.
Okay. So back onto it, Ty. You had said, I got to start it off tonight. I got to kick us off. So I'm going to start off with our number 1 starting pitcher through our number 5. And number 1 for us is Shohei Ohtani. It is hard to argue in fantasy baseball outside of a couple of sites, Yahoo and NFBC in particular. I think CBS is still doing it, but we know for sure Fantrax has amalgamated the Ohtani, and that means that he is both a pitcher and a hitter for you. If that's your format, obviously he's your number 1, and it's simply a matter of how your league tries to suppress his dominance. But even if he's in a pitching role, he is an excellent pitcher for you. And I can't deny the fact that if he's not starting and you're in daily lineups or anything like that, you can just move him over to your DH. It's just, you can call it a cheat code. You can call it whatever. Ohtani is the number 1. I think that Garrett Cole is really good, damn good, excellent pitcher. He's on a team that gets good wins, and they can be in the lead early, so he himself can get the wins. And he just did not have what I would call a dominant year last year, and he was still the 11th best pitcher in 8x8. And just so everybody knows, we don't do 5x5, we do 8x8. So we've got your wins, we count losses, we count your saves and holds as one category. We've got ERA, we've got your whip, and Ty, what are the other three that I'm blanking on right now? I'm
Sorry,
staring at the hitter one.
else. I wasn't even paying
You
attention.
would. Wow.
You're wins, quality starts, strikeouts.
Quality starts, thank you. Strikeouts is the other, and then it's hits per 9. That's the final one. So that way we're trying to get an all-around view of how a pitcher can help you for your points leagues, your roto, your what have you. Anyway, Garrett Cole, number 2, and like I said, in a non-dominant year, he was the 11th best guy. I still think he, 5 years down the road, is going to be dominating. Corbin Burns has steadily been climbing the ranks, deservedly so. And last year, as good as Corbin Burns was, he finished 12th. But he is at number 3. Number 4 is on the rise, somebody that I have liked since 2018 and patiently waited, and now, reaping the rewards. But I have also traded him away in leagues because, it's okay to do that with stars and studs. That's Julio Urias, who is 25 right now. And then at number 5 is the guy that everybody loves to count out. And when they all counted him out last year, what did he do? Gave us a top 10 result season. Shane Bieber with Cleveland. He's 27 years old. He's going to go ahead and beat the odds and do it again. It's part Cleveland pitching. It's part Cleveland catching. It's part coaching and defense. Shane Bieber is going to still be dominating in 5 years. He's 27 right now, right? Like, this is a good guy. Anyway, that's our top 5. Ty, if you got anything to say on those guys, otherwise the ball is in your court for 6 to 10.
Yeah, real quick, just, I think with Garrett Cole, you've got him ranked high. I'm a little further back. I am at 6, right? Which I just think we're going to start to see the fade on Cole. It's fastball, slider. The other pitches aren't really great. He's got 2+ pitches. He dominates with them. But as the fastball velocity comes off, it's not a fastball that dips or dives. It's just heat and location. So, as that velocity starts to go away, we're going to see him a little more susceptible. And I think we saw parts of that last year. So that's my concern with Cole. He's still going to be great. He's still going to be very good. He's still going to be an SP1, no questions asked. But I think he's off of the number 1 pedestal moving forward for me. He's also the oldest in this group, which is important. Urias, I love. If you're in a redraft and you're listening, love Urias this year on a walk year, right? I think it's going to be a huge year for him. Contract year, lefty. He's got to go to free agency, whether he stays in LA or not. He's going to get absolutely paid as a lefty with stuff. So Bieber, for me, fits the category. You've heard me talk about David Price and others along the way. Just the velo drop. The hook's excellent here, but you can't protect the hook if the velo comes off. So that's the concern I have with Bieber. The stuff's great. He does everything you want from a pitcher, but very similar to like Savale, who we talked about. Think the book is going to be different on him moving forward. I think this is the last year of his moving up, and I think he's going to start the same fade we saw a little bit for Cole. So 6 through 10, Max Fried coming in at 6. 7's Dylan Cease, who's had a couple good seasons here. Jake DeGrom at 8, Alek Manoah at 9, and Shane McClanahan coming in at 10. This is a really interesting group here, Robbie. Like, Max Fried was as good as anybody last year. Really sneaky good. Carried the wins, had a reasonable amount of strikeouts. Kind of really similar to Bieber. Like, he might be a left-handed NL version of Bieber. Like, just a guy that at the end of the year you go, holy crap, that was a pretty good season. Very, very similar, not overpowering stuff. Relies on a great hook, and some other, average or above average pitches that are in his mix. So
and he did finish, Ty. He finished 10th last year. Like, to your point, like, Bieber was 9th and Fried was right there with him at 10. Fried's a year older than Bieber. So yeah, it's all there.
Yep, I like it. And then Cease is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, like electric stuff, strikeout stuff for days. It's just a matter of whether you can keep the bombs down and keep that whip under control. Because if not, he could easily be in that top 3 category come season's end here. So I have him much higher, Robbie. I'm betting on the continued improvement because we've seen it over the last couple of years here. And I think the reason I have him as high as I do is I think over a 5-year stretch, the strikeout totals for him are just going to be a differentiator. Because in this top 10, he's probably going to be number one in that category, assuming we don't see a full 5 years out of DeGrom healthy, right? Assuming, Ohtani doesn't have huge max innings like some of the other guys can get to, and assuming Garrett Cole doesn't have 5 of his best years of his career, right? So, a lot of things have to break his way, but Cease could very easily be, one of the top, if not the top in that group. DeGrom here at 8, love DeGrom. I'd rank him higher if it wasn't for health concerns. It's just a matter of how many games he plays. And Alek Manoah, everybody loves to kind of be a little bit behind on Manoah, Robbie. I think there's still a lot of there's a catch for this guy. He's just a gamer. I mean, we've talked about this for a couple years now. I think he's just the kind of guy you want to have the ball. He had a rough playoff performance, but it is what it is. Shane McClanahan, kind of similar, maybe less of the gamer mentality, but maybe slightly better stuff. And I think that's going to play well for him. So not a ton of movement in this group, Robbie, a pretty simple one. A lot of guys that are kind of probably the top 5 of the future, maybe, or at least going to be in that picture. And we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, top 5 seasons for sure ahead for some of those guys. I'm just trying to pin down the Cease one, where he finished last year, because I feel like I messed up. I had him in, there it was. I had him in at 31, and I thought that was wrong. So he was 18th last year in 8x8, because I thought, I'm like, the K's were so amazing. How is it that he wasn't that high? So that's why. So at number 11 for us, we've got the career resurgence, or really just a healthy Carlos Rodon, who now best thing that happened to him this past year is he got a 6-year deal, which for 5-year dynasty rankings, which is again what we're covering the next 5 years.
And real quick, Robbie, sorry to jump in on you, but
hello, is it me you're looking for?
That's true. Yeah, post hype, team post hype member before it all came together for him. And Rodon now playing this year at age 30, I think he turns 31 this year, is locked and loaded. Again, same story with Cole, dominant pitcher on a team that's going to be able to have leads early and hopefully can hold them for him to get wins. Number 12, we have Luis Castillo with Seattle. It's an interesting one here. He's been such a disappointment for people who thought he was a top 10 talent, because he hasn't done that. Last year he was 39th. But again, change of scenery, going from a team going the wrong direction to Seattle, who is, playoff team now, looking to repeat, looking to get a division. It's an incredibly hard AL West, but he's in it and he's going to have a lot of competitive games. Should be fun to see Luis Castillo next year. And if they extend him beyond, a teammate, Logan Gilbert, who last year finished 22nd, amazing 25-year-old starting pitcher, lots of promise with him. Sandy Alcantara, who last year finished 6th. And I mean, I don't think he's getting his due anywhere. Everybody thinks there's major regression coming. I don't know what it is he's going to have to do to be able to stabilize, within rankings with people, because I feel like I have been high on him for so long. I had him ranked 6th last year and he nailed it. He was 6th. The year before, I had him ranked 14th. And I've always liked the stuff, but it's since the trade from the Cardinals, he's just never given people the satisfying results he wanted. And then last year he was elite, and yet this year they're talking, sliding him back. But he's right beside in the rankings, number 15th, Max Scherzer, who I've got him at 28. Ty, that's funny. He's 38 this year. That's what he's pitching at. And if it wasn't for the fact that he's now consistently spending time on the IL, I would absolutely love Scherzer and think he could continue to pitch at a very high level for several years to come. But I have serious concerns that in 5 years, Max Scherzer will be out of MLB for at least 1 year prior. I don't know if we are going to see a 4th year from Max Scherzer, because maybe he doesn't like being on the IL all the time. Maybe he needs something. Love what he puts up when he's out there, very much like Mr. Clayton Kershaw, but they hurt you from a fantasy standpoint, and it's very dangerous to load a dynasty roster with multiple of these guys because they have a high cost. If you're in salary contract league, these are expensive players to have. But you got guys at the other end of the spectrum too, like Logan Gilbert, who are just getting rolling. You've got guys that they're, peak here with Rodon, Castillo, and then somebody like Alcantara, who's 26, and you've got Scherzer, who is like, the old man here, but they can all pitch and dominate. And in a 2-start week, if any of these guys are in your lineup, you are in a great position in head-to-head.
Yeah, and Luis Castillo did get extended, Robbie, 5 years,
Oh, he was?
108,
Okay.
108
Thank you.
with a vesting option for the final year. So Logan Gilbert,
Attaboy, Jerry.
Alex Fast, friend of the show here, posted an interesting clip about Logan Gilbert adding, and you'll be ready for this, Robbie, a splitter. So instant
Ooh.
Logan Gilbert fan right here. We're talking Splitsville,
I
and me
hope
and
Cal
Logan
Raleigh
Gilbert.
can block a splitter.
Yeah, no, he can't. He can't. That's a fact. Especially with that bum thumb.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
Tom Murphy is getting some more playing time.
that's right. So like I love Logan Gilbert. I liked him before. He kind of has that same gamer mentality, maybe less of a street fighter than Manoa, but kind of that same gamer style of pitching. You had that splitter for me. That's kind of the missing link for him. And I seen some video of it, and it's pretty filthy. So I do expect, as long as he can control it and set it up, that to be a very effective pitch for him. The only thing to note there, Robbie, is splitters can, when introduced late in careers, lead to arm side injuries. So something just to watch for with Logan Gilbert moving forward. I'm with you on Alcantara. I've never been an Alcantara guy, and it's mainly just because I'm in a lot of leagues with you.
Right.
So I'm
And I
never
was
going
in
to spend.
early.
Yeah, I'm never going to spend what you spend or as early as you spend it. And now you own them, so I don't even try. But the one thing that I've seen on him, kind of across a couple different data sets, is just the impact of the shift on a guy that throws a lot of low stuff, sinker ball stuff, ground ball guy. So he still has a decent strikeout number, but all of the numbers that I've seen about regression based on the elimination of the shift, Alcantara is near the top of those boards on every list that I. So just something to note. I will add, though, the Marlins defense got better. So there's probably a balance there that is needing to be assessed that probably wasn't in those spreadsheets when they did
Right.
that.
Yeah, they can't
But
data that when you get a first baseman who's better assuming a first baseman who's legitimately better defensively. Chisholm going to the outfield helps you, in addition to the fact that you should still have a very capable second baseman. Gene Segura is your shortstop. You got good D.
well, Segura's actually going to play third. We're probably going to see
that's
Jordan
right.
Groshans
Sorry.
at shortstop.
Who the heck? Okay. Well, we'll worry
I'm
about
expecting
that
to see Groshans. They haven't said that, but that's who I'm expecting to come out. Anyway, you pretty much hit the nail on the head with Scherzer. I think we've got 2-3 years left of Scherzer. I think, unlike Verlander, who just seems like he's going to be the Tom Brady of starting pitching at this point, Scherzer looks like the wheels are falling off. Like, he's still gritty. He's still like grunting a little bit out there, but it definitely looks a lot more painful than it does for JV. So that's my big concern with Scherzer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Ty. And you've got 16-20 here.
Yeah, this is an interesting group here, Robbie. We got Brandon Woodruff, who had an awful start last year, but then steadied the ship and kind of got it together. Didn't go to arbitration, so the front office didn't get a chance to tell him that he was the reason they didn't make the playoffs. But he definitely was a good enough last season. He finished 17th in the 8x8 ranks. I mean, this is a guy that we can still believe in. We're going to be just fine here. You can continue to own him, for the foreseeable future. He's just 29. Kevin Gausman in Toronto, 31, getting a little bit older, but kind of a fine wine, getting better with age. Velocity's staying strong. The splitter is as good as anybody's. There's a lot to like about Gausman. I still don't think he's ever going to creep into the top 10. I just don't think he has that third away to righty pitches that's just dominant. Splitter's excellent. It gets a lot of people out from both sides of the plate, but without that like dominant slider, that's the difference between Kevin Gausman and a Kurt Schilling, because the splitter's good enough to be great. The slider's just not good enough to be elite. And that's really it there. Zach Wheeler, we've got a little further back, Robbie. I'm interested to hear your take on this one. I've got Wheeler higher than where we got him here at 18. I like Wheeler. I think he's one of the more dominant guys. I think very much like Gausman moving up. I think he's got better stuff or better pitch repertoire than Gausman, and that's why I kind of have him higher than that. But we're grasping at straws here. Next on the list here is Dustin May at 19. I have him really high, Robbie. I still think the best stuff in all of baseball. I think it's just electric. It sinks, it dives, it goes all over the place, and I think we're going to see that bounce back here. I'm looking for a lot of fastball command in the spring here, Robbie. That's what I'm chasing, because that's going to be the slider's never going to be the issue for Dustin May. It's just going to be fastball command. And coming off Tommy John, we all know that's the last thing to come back. We're on the timeline here where Dustin May can have an absolutely electric season. And in 5 years, I like Dustin May a lot for a 5-year stretch. Last guy in this group is Logan Webb. Kind of had an offseason last year based on, I think, the expectations going in from a dominant year the year before. Still wasn't a bad season by any stretch. 16th ranked in the 8x8 format. Great starting pitcher. You can count on him. Quality start machine. Not a lot to dislike. It's just one of those guys that gets forgotten because he doesn't have electric Dustin May stuff. So people want to fade him because they just don't see the consistency and the value in that in a lot of cases.
And the Giants as a team took a step back last year. So his win total's down because the team win total went way down. So the only guy I got to touch on here very quickly with Gausman, we both ranked him. You were 18 last year. I was 21. We stressed concerns with the second half fade that he had and weren't sure what was going to happen moving him to the AL. He finished last year as the 30th ranked starting pitcher and was great, like serviceable. Sorry, I shouldn't say great. He was very serviceable for you on your dynasty teams, but he was an expensive acquisition if you didn't have him, headed into your offseason. So you needed a top 20 performance from him, and he didn't give it to you. And he's going to play this year at 31. I don't think he turns 32 until this year. But to the counterpoint of your Zach Wheeler love, I have my Zach Wheeler fears, which is that he started his career hurt and delayed, and then came in and slow burn with the Mets. He was part of a Carlos Beltran 1-for-1 trade, I think, back in the day as a San Francisco drafted kid. He's 32, though. He's going to play this year and turn 33. And in 2021, he had his career season, 213 innings. Prior to that, he'd had 195 and 182 in 18 and 19. Good, totally good. But it was the K per 9 for him. And that's what the thing is with me. Yes, he's had a sub-3 ERA for 3-4 straight seasons. That's awesome. Like that absolutely helps you. That's why he's ranked where he is for me, which is 26th. That is his major contributing factor that he gives to you, is controllable ERA. And he's had a good whip the last 2 years, but realistically for fantasy, he's had a good whip the last 3. But before that, he's never been the guy that you're really pumped about. 1.25 in that area. That's very standard. You can find streamers that can do that for you a few times. That's not to say Wheeler's a streamer, not at all. But the K to 9 is where I think people are forgetting that. What was it that he did last year? He was he was 9.6 last year. The year before his career year, he was 10.4. 9.6 is a big step back from that, and 9.6 is his second best of his career. I don't see him getting back up to 10 again. So I think we're on the down slope of it.
He had a little bit of injury concern last year, like some
innings were down 153.
And the other part of it too is the reason I like him, Robbie. I think he's a dominant guy, but I also think that Phillies team is locked in for the next 5 years. Right. So for me, that's part of that. Like if you're looking at the innings that he's going to get, the low stress innings from being up 6-1, right? Like stuff like that is going to impact him in a way that doesn't necessarily hit some of the other guys, right? Like Philly's going to score some runs. Like that's just going to be a thing.
I think it depends whether he wants to punch guys out or he wants to get deeper into games. Because if he wants to go for some contact, I would agree with you, but I don't think that's what he's going to do. And I think he's going to run himself into 150 inning seasons instead of 200 inning seasons.
Yeah, and there probably some truth to that, but 18 wins, is going to be on the table for a lot of these next couple of seasons. So, like, that's not saying they're locks, but I think it's on the table. That's my debate, and I'll leave it there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So from 21 through to 25, at 21, we've got Framber Valdez. He was the number 2 guy last year. He was not respected by you or I to be anywhere near that range. Not that we disrespected him. We had him at 80 each in our rankings, which puts him comfortably in the SP3 conversation. Because we basically think if you're a top 30 pitcher, you're a SP1. If you're, of course you want to get into tiers, right? That's what all the redrafters want to do. They want to tell you there's 5 guys that are real aces, and there are, 14 others who you could, flip a coin and they're all going to finish within. Yeah, great analysis. But what we're trying to do is give you an idea of where you want to put these guys within your dynasty team. You don't need to have 5 aces. That's going to really hurt you somewhere else unless you've drafted insanely well. But Framber's value went way up last year, and his value headed in for over the next 5 years we thought was a little high actually at 80th, and then he goes up and puts a 2 on the board. Well, now he's, catapulted right up. I've got him at 18 just because, like, Ty has spent too much time talking about how Houston is going to be able to sustain themselves, to the point that I've been like diving into the Houston system and looking at, outfield prospects like Dearden and Hensley and these guys who nobody knows, who got a bit of time last year or were really good at Double-A and then got promoted. And I can see how that train could keep rolling for Houston. And a guy like Framber Valdez is one of those dudes who's going to keep it going for them. So next to him is Lucas Giolito at 22. Yeah, we had a big recoil last year. Still one of those bulldogs on the mound. Still going to, punch a ton of, what is it? Punch a ton of tickets. I think that's what they say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I saw Michael Lorenzen, Ty, talking to whatever random Detroit camera that was at spring training, and he had Reese Olson beside him, who's a guy that I love, and I think we'll be talking about on an upcoming episode here, who was like a ticket puncher extraordinaire at Double-A last year. And he said, Lorenzen of Olson, he said, "Hey, Tigers fans, you need to know this guy right here, Reese Olson. He's going to punch a lot of tickets this year." So I just said punch a lot of tickets a lot, but that was the reason why. Anyway, Christian Javier, who is 25 years old, signed the extension with Houston. That's another reason why the train could keep on rolling for the Astros. Very good conversion last year. He finished the year at 48th for starting pitchers, which is not where you want to be from a dominant standpoint, but from a turn the corner of what's he going to be into now. He's just a legit starting pitcher. That's where he is. Walker Buehler, injured. So we're banking on some serious projection. Ty had him as a top guy last year. I had him in my top 3. And what are you going to do? Guy gets injured, right? You got to account for that in your rankings. There's time missed. So you want to be aggressive on him, go ahead, be aggressive. I'm being a little more cautious on the comeback here. And then this guy, Ty, one of my favorites. I ranked him 12th last year. He finished the year at 40th. However, he did start the year in AAA. That's right, everybody. One of the KC 6, I haven't forgotten. Brady Singer. What? Hold for applause. Oh, okay. Anyway, Singer is 25, turns 26 this year, and he's just going to be the guy for KC. He's going to go from the not making rotation last year to, I hope, opening day starter, but I think they'll probably give it to Greinke. The real opening day starter should be Brady Singer. But anyway, that's 21 through 25. The oldest dude here is 20, will be 28 this year. And I like this crew, but I'm concerned with Buehler innings total.
Yeah, and for me, I'm leaning on the 5-year window. Like, Buehler's just going to be good for 5 years. Like, yeah, it might take him a minute to get back up to speed. I'll still take 4 years, even if that's the full unit of Walker Buehler over almost every pitcher in the top 30, right? Like, he's just consistent. He's going to be good. Safe bet for me. That's why I like him a little bit more than you, Robbie. Christian Javier, the big knock on him was splits against the lefties. We saw that correction last year. We saw the production. We saw some absolutely elite outings out of Christian Javier last year. So I'm with you. I think there's opportunity to grow on that. The big thing for me with Framber is he added a cutter last year, Robbie. And that was a really successful pitch for him. It was actually probably his most effective pitch, but he didn't use it a lot. And he leaned on it in the playoffs a little bit in a couple outings, and just guys were sitting on other pitches and he just kept pouring it in on their hands. I think there's going to be an adjustment here. Now, I'm not saying Framber is going to be bad by any stretch, but I'm not expecting the same elite outcomes we saw last year across 200 innings. I think there's going to be maybe he had a 2.82 last year. I could see him in the 320 range, Robbie, only because he doesn't have the offerings outside of his curveball to protect him from, a little bit of damage. Very controllable, weak contact kind of guy, like almost like a version of Dallas Keuchel, except with a little bit more velocity. Right, very similar style of pitching. So I think that's maybe a good comparable, and you can see how that kind of progressed at the back end of Keichel's career. So just that's the big flag there for me. I don't even know where to rank Brady Singer, if I'm honest with you, Robbie. I'm so uncomfortable with him. It's not even funny. You're dying on the hill, and I respect that a lot.
I'm not dying on the hill. Once he came up, he had a perfectly fine line. It was 100% related to the fact that he started the year in AAA, or sorry, maybe it was bullpen. Then he got demoted to AAA to start, and then came back up. Like,
I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying you invested like your life savings into Brady Singer here. So
Yeah.
like, you gotta run this all the way into the ground. That's all I'm saying.
But there
I
are guys
respect
who
it.
I've
Like,
run it into the ground with. Ty. He had 10 wins last year, a 3.23 ERA. Let me just say 150 Ks in 153 in the third innings.
I'm still gonna draft Nomar
fine.
Mazara this year. It's gonna be a thing.
Oh my God.
So
Don't do
like
this. No, you're just discrediting Brady Singer's legitimacy.
no,
No.
I'm just scared of him. I'm not saying he can't be great. I'm not gonna play that card. I'm not touching him because he scares me.
Okay.
But to Rob's point, the deal is there, right? There's a deal on Brady Singer because most people feel like I do, right?
Yeah, that he hasn't done what you expected, and he was your first round pick in your dynasty league.
Correct.
If you kept him this long, blah blah blah. Like, absolutely.
There's deals to be had. That I will not argue.
Okay, so Ty, you are up now for 26.
Sorry, I had to have a sip of the bourbon here. So
I
next on the
understand.
list here, we're at 26 through 30. We got Aaron Nola, Nick Lodolo, Robbie Ray, Zach Gallen, and Tyler Glasnow to round out the top 30. I'm gonna start with Glasnow here, Robbie. I think we have him high at 30. I think this is a guy that could be inside the top 20, potentially inside the top 10, right, by season's end here. And now a lot has to go right. He has to have a full season of innings coming off an injury. That's probably a tough ask. We know Tampa likes to monitor innings. They like to use their bullpen in excess. So, that does chip away at Glasnow's value. But a healthy Glasnow at 29 in a contract season, is a guy that I'm willing to bet on. And I think wherever he lands after this contract, because I don't see him coming back to Tampa Bay, I think he's going to be a real bargain for somebody out there. So I like that one. Zach Gallen's just a tough one for me. He obviously had a great 2022 and seems to have turned the corner, but he just looks like the guy that hits 5 wood on the par 4 that he could drive. And that for me, I can't get that image out of my head. Instead of going for the green, he lays up, and I just don't respect that. And it has nothing to do with his pitching ability, but it's a complete like garbage. I'm not in on him for that reason. I don't, he gives me the, like, when it matters, he's not going to be there vibes. And those are the guys that when it comes to pitching, I just don't invest in ever. And sometimes I get burnt. That's fine. But yeah, I just can't do it. Nick Lodolo, on the other hand, is a guy, Robbie, that if we go back a couple seasons, I was like, buy. This is a bargain. This is a guy waiting to happen. Everyone's like, he doesn't get enough strikeouts. Da, 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 da. Here we are. He's a strikeout guy now. Lefty power arm. You miss your window to buy him cheap, but still a guy you want to own. And then you got Robbie Ray and Aaron Nola, who like maybe are the most two comparable guys of all time. Like, can go out there and have just the best outings of any pitcher in the entire league on any given night, and then just do the complete opposite the very next start. And so that's the big risk with both of these guys. But at the end of the year, the data is gonna leave you in a good spot. They were both mid-30s last season in the 8x8, which kind of speaks to where we both kind of have them in our ranks, Robbie. You're a little higher on Robbie Ray. I'm a little higher on Aaron Nola, and it kind of comes out in the wash.
Yeah, I feel like Ray's just going to be, a consistent good player. He's elevated his level, and that's that.
Pants
aren't just a better pitcher.
Pants aren't as tight as they used to be, though.
Well, maybe he'll grow into them out there in Seattle. But your comment on Glasnow, my comparable is best case scenario for Tyler Glasnow is he becomes Carlos Rodon. It'll be the same thing with the age. So, but what he's got to do this year is something that he hasn't been able to. Pardon me. And that's just be healthy and dominant. He's been healthy, and then people were like, he's not that good, and then he's been good, and then had to be, shut down, or he's come back from injury and been good. We haven't seen both, and that's the issue. And I will not make a dynasty investment knowing how much he is going to cost to acquire, to do anything with, sign in your contracts, leagues, anything like that. I just will not make an investment in a player that I fear the health as much as Glasnow has shown us, and especially knowing that he's going into age 30. Like some people were okay with Rodon because they got innings here and there. I don't think we got enough from Glasnow to make like a 5-year investment. So that's why for me, he's 43.
I think if you look at the body of work, though, he's probably had more innings at this stage in his career than Rodon did.
Well, perhaps. I honestly don't know, but I also know that Glasnow has been he was not a great pro when he was first with Pittsburgh. It was post the trade that there was the real, turnaround, because he was in the bullpen, I believe, in Pittsburgh prior to the trade. So it was a Tampa resurrection type project. Anyway, that's just
I stand corrected. He's thrown half as many innings as Rodon.
Oh, there you go. Boom.
Yeah. Less than half,
anyway.
Actually.
31 through 35 for us. With 31, we've got Spencer Strider, who just boomed onto the scene last year, and great, good for him. 24-year-old, was 37th last year, but was very dominant. 37th starting pitcher. So it wasn't like he had a top 20 or anything, but he was great, and everybody was very happy to see him there. Dynasty owners all pumped up. On the other end of that is the guy who you've loved, you've hated, you've tried to trade away, you've tried to trade for, and now he's got 3 more years in San Diego, and that's probably going to be it for the career. But that's Yu Darvish, who last year was 4th. Oh my God. What could be worse than Yu Darvish being dominant all year? Well, Justin Verlander coming back from injury and becoming the top pitcher. That could be worse if you hate him. Pardon me, the 40-year-old was back, and it was great, but he's 33 for us because I just don't see how many seasons he's got left in him. And I mean, he's a Met now, but we know how well it went for DeGrom. We know what's gone on with Scherzer. It's nothing that the Mets have done, but it's just he's a 40-year-old man, and things don't always work the same. Ranger Suarez, on the other hand, is now a legitimate starting pitcher and somebody that we can look to see some stabilization in the career over the next year or two. And I think that he's going to be a pretty steady SP 2-3 type, but I'm banking on the higher end of that. I've got him at 35th. Ty's actually in the ballpark with me, which I bet he regrets having him at 37. And for us, he fell at 34. And then at number 35 for us, we have George Kirby. And did we not just have, that was Logan Gilbert ahead? Oh my goodness. Hold on. Let me check this out. Gilbert was 13th. I'm trying to count the rotation of Seattle. 1, 2, 3, 4 starting pitchers inside the top 35 tie. Wow. Woo-wee woo. George Kirby, the 25-year-old. Yeah, that's right. That's when I saw it, I'm like, whoa, he's 30. He's in the 35 too. Jeez. But anyway, George Kirby also dominant. And we know Seattle's got Marco Gonzalez. They've got Chris Flexen. And they've got guys down below bubbling away in AAA, Emerson Hancock and company. But that starting 4 is locked in now with the Mariners, and it's going to create wins, opportunities, and Kirby's just studly. And I am looking forward to seeing a full season of him. We know that he came up and he was maxing out on innings for a while, so they were trying to figure out the best way to manage it. This group has like youth on its side with Strider and Kirby, and then it's got the oldest of the old in Darvish and Verlander, some of the oldest starting pitchers this year. But again, this is what happens, right? We need these young guys to stabilize and climb up the ranks, and it's a struggle for Darvish and Verlander to be able to hold their position. So that's what happens when we're in the 30s.
I mean, this is a really interesting category. Like if you look at Spencer Strider, a real dominant 3-pitch repertoire. He threw the fastball, I'm going to call, almost 65% of the time, if I'm doing the math right there. It's definitely concerning for me that that's the total. The strikeout number is obviously elite and real strong for what's probably a rookie season. I think he was.
Yeah, that was his rookie season. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he did pound some innings in 2001, but not enough to cross that off. But yeah, so I mean, the issue here for me, Robbie, is like it's kind of that. Why can I not think of the guy that was in the starting / bullpen? Lamet for the Padres.
Nelson Lamet.
That's the one. Thank you. It just for me, it's a repertoire thing. The changeup, he only threw 100 changeups last year, and he threw 643 sliders. And so, like, to throw that many fastballs, I'm really concerned with the longevity of this kind of dominance. So it's just, they always talk about if you tell a major league pitcher a fastball's coming, they're going to hit it. Well, the book's out now, right? So we're going to see that adjustment at some level. So the question becomes this year, can he locate the slider off of the fastball, right? And I'm not so sure that he can do it because, he had a reasonable amount of strikeouts with that slider, almost a 30% put away percentage on the slider. So that's a pretty respectable number there. But, can he get away with just those two pitches? Because 100 changeups across an entire season, like, we're into Nelson Lamet territory here. And
right, he's got a relief pitcher's repertoire, relief pitcher's percentage of pitches thrown, which, as a starter, you just can't do that.
Correct. And so we saw that with Lamet, and it faded later. By later, I mean almost immediately.
Well, I mean, he's in Colorado now.
Yeah, right. So
as a relief pitcher, that's what's happened. So just beware.
And yeah, he has an absolutely electric fastball. So it's not to take anything away from that pitch, but it's just one of those ones. Like it's a big red flag for me. I'm not super jacked up about him. I've got him a lot further back than you do, Robbie. I'm just a little scared of him there. But yeah, the rest of this list, like Darvish, I think he signed a 5-year deal, Robbie. I know you said 3.
Oh, I thought it was a 3. Wow,
he could have been
until he's 40. That's ridiculous.
It was 6. It was 6 years. He signed through
oh my god
2028, which is cool. I mean, yeah.
Well, maybe he'll do the Smoltz convert to a closer thing.
Well, and I mean, the Padres spent the entire offseason throwing money down the YouTube. Sorry, that was just too easy.
Hey, no, that's not bad. That's really
JV, like, I mean, Hall of Famer. Let's double down here, right? He went to the big light, the big city. Him and Max are going to be fun to watch. Health is the only concern. Ranger, I think he's right where he needs to be, Robbie. Like, sinker ball guy. He's not going to give you elite peripheral numbers. He's just going to get guys out on a good team. I think that's important. Kirby, I'm with you. There might not be another pitcher in baseball I'm more excited to watch this year than George Kirby.
Yeah, he's good at the baseball. Oh, Ty, I don't know if you froze there. Oh no, you're back. Okay. Yeah, so you're up here for 40. No, I just skipped 36 through 40. We're
at 36 through 40 here. Sorry, I had to get a sip of water there. No Joe Musgrove in San Diego. This is a guy, everybody wants to make him a top 10 guy. Everyone's like, God, Joe Musgrove, so good, so great. And he just keeps being mediocre. And he just throws a lot of pitches. Like he just doesn't get guys out quickly. That's always going to be his Achilles heel. And it's not really the stuff, but the stuff doesn't get quick outs. It's a weird kind of, no man's land. And I mean, then he puts all that stuff on his ears, and that's a whole different conversation. But Patrick Sandoval, Robbie, just a splits guy, right? We talked about this earlier with Christian Javier. Like if he could ever control the splits against the righties, he could be elite. And I know you've been waiting for that day
very patiently. Yep.
And it's just one of those ones that I don't know that it's going to come. Might end up shifting to the bullpen, Robbie. That's the big concern I have. But if you can get something to go against the righties, like I believe there's an absolutely elite guy here. Is there anything, just before I move on, that you've seen this offseason that he's changing anything on that front?
Nothing that I have been looking into with Angels camp at this point. But again, I haven't started to read the beat writers' reports for all 30 of the teams yet. I like to get into about a week of games, because at this point in time, best case scenario is a pitcher throws 1 inning or 4 outs. So I want to give them a little bit more time so they start to actually throw some pitches, because a lot of time in spring training, they'll start on a pitch, they're working on it all spring training, and they just throw it away when the season starts. So I want to hear, because that was a Frankie Montas thing with Oakland way back when it was, could he make the rotation? And it was, he's started, he's added a pitch, but he kept it.
Yeah.
Whereas other guys dink with a pitch and throw it away. So I want to see what he does before I get really excited. But I already think the groundwork is there for Sandoval to be good for you in Dynasty, good in your formats, but not have a stat line that is dominant, that wins the respect of like the redraft community, the high stakes type guys, because they're just going to keep trying to hit home runs with these high ceiling guys, and they're going to forget about somebody like Sandoval, who's probably going to be very consistent in a 6-man rotation again this year.
Well, sub 3 ERA with a 6-9 record, right? So obviously some room for improvement. And that Angels team could not have been worse than they were last year. Everything broke the wrong way for them. But at the end of the day, there's room for improvement. The big issue like that I see, like he's so good against the lefties, an anemic 168 slug and a 385 OPS. Like that's good stuff against the lefties. But it's really not overly concerning against the righties. It's just a matter of it hasn't made that jump, right? So he needs to solve for that, and I think that 725 OPS could slide under 7 for the first time this season. So that's just something to look forward to. Jumping into the rest of this group here, Jose Urquidy, which is high for me, Robbie. I've got him a little further back than you. This is a guy that kind of slid out of that rotation. I think he has the potential to slide back in. The concern for me here, honestly, is just the next wave of guys, right? You've got Hunter Brown, who he's got to beat out for a spot in that rotation. We could, and a lot of people are going to be shy on this one. Forrest Whitley could be in the conversation again here, healthy going into the spring here. So that could be an interesting one. And neither of the last two guys should be ahead of Kyle Wright heading into this season, who we have at 39. Again, we do 5 years ranked across both of us here. And both of us are pretty good and consistent on Kyle Wright. And we just have him slide slightly back of that group. He had an absolutely great season last year in Atlanta. I think everyone's expecting to double down on that. I'm still a little cautious, Robbie. I'm not ready to bump him into
the same camp. Yep.
That top 20. Like he finished 5 last year, Rob. I don't see 5 again. I could realistically see 15. Like I think that's in the realm of possibility. But I'm going to be cautious because I've been late to the game with Wright. I stayed away from him. I'm going to stay in that camp. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong on that one. A guy I'm going to love to be right on. I've been talking about him for a couple seasons. Grayson Rodriguez. We are absolutely going to see Grayson Rodriguez this year, short of an injury. And so I've got him, Rob, at 26. So I see him as an SP1 almost day one. I think over a 5-year stretch, he's an absolute SP1 here. And I think we might see him break camp with Baltimore. That's a very strong possibility if they want to run him out there. I think they're going to send him down for conditioning just because of coming off the injury from last season. They babied him at the end of last year. I think they're going to baby him into this year. They should have no misguidance in terms of where they're going to finish this year in Baltimore based on the top of their division. So I think they're just going to play the smart contract game and bring him up come June.
I'm with you on that. Kyle Wright came out of nowhere, and that's legitimate. We had him in the SP 5 range last year, and he came up and put up, elite numbers. Great. Now you got to prove it. You don't just get the rank of being a top 20 guy, a top 30 guy, because you had one good season when no one was expecting it. You got to now back it up, right? Grayson Rodriguez is here because he's been an elite prospect since he was drafted 4 years ago now, and we are waiting for him on the cusp.
One thing real quick on Kyle Wright, he was a 5th overall pick out of Vanderbilt. So the pedigree was there. He just dumped all over the bed for the first several seasons of his major league career or professional career. So it's not to say out of nowhere. I just think he had fallen so far out of graces that last year was an absolute shock.
Well, just really quickly look at his WAR for all the War League guys out there. Prior to last year, Ty, was negative 0.5.
Yeah.
Right. So last year he was 3.6 WAR. His career WAR is 3.1. So the wins were incredible, right? We've seen other pitchers walk into wins. Didn't Jay Happ have 20 wins one year? it's about backing it up. And I'm not trying to crap on him. I'm just trying to say the reason that he doesn't become a top 20 ranked SP over the next 5 years when he's only starting this year at 27 is because he has not had a track record of pro success, of MLB success. He debuted in 2018. So he's been around and he's been kicking in the minors and he's not been dominating, but he got it together last year and that's great. Just like Strider, we need to see it come back. We need to see the consistency now build. And then absolutely. So this is one where I guess we're both just going to potentially be late on the party or to the party and deal with it.
And one thing to note, Robbie, huge tick up in the changeup use last year, right? that for me is probably the big thing to watch this year early on. If you're a Kyle Wright owner, like if you see that changeup getting tagged early, trade immediately, get rid of him. That's the probably big red flag I would have.
Speaking of red flags, Ty, here at 41, we have Luis Severino with the Yankees, who is still in his 20s. Wow. He'll play this year at 29. When he's healthy, he's good. I don't know if his body's going to hold up for 7 years, but I'm thinking he's still got a shot at being good for 5. And that's why he is where he is. Drew Rasmussen with Tampa Bay. He'll play this year at 27. He's now stabilized. And last year he was 56th in 8x8, his first full season starting. Let's see more of the same. You know who else was really good, Ty? Tristan McKenzie. That's right. The 25-year-old. I don't think he's actually 25 yet. He might be turning 25 soon with the Guardians. Excuse me. I've got him inside my top 30. I think we've got more good things to come with him. No, sorry. I've got him at 39. Sorry. And I think we've got more good things to come. He's just outside at 43. Hunter Green, who, if it wasn't for the fact that he's on a terrible team who doesn't win, would be more fantasy relevant. So thinking of the long term here, Cincinnati should be good or can't be worse. Take that idea. I think he only had like 4 wins last year. Maybe it was 6. So this is someone who should be trying to carve out 10 to 12. That should be your peak while Cincinnati sucks. And that's what's going to hurt his fantasy value, as that is one of our categories that we have to count for. And again, he's not getting saves or holds, right? So 2 of your 8 pitching categories, he's not helpful in. Then we got Jose Barrios, who, even though it looked horrible last year, and we talked about it off the hop, I said it was going to be a really rough start for him. He had a ton of tough matchups. He still finished the year as the 43rd best starting pitcher. We've got him here at 45. He's got 5 years of his contract, I believe, with Toronto. So it all lines up that it could be AL East innings. And I mean, I'm recoiling back. I had him in the teens last year. I knew it was aggressive to rank him there. And the recoil back is one of the reasons why I'm not willing to do that with a guy like Kyle Wright. I'm going to wait and see what happens here. But anyway, this crew, Severino, Rasmussen, McKenzie, Green, and Barrios, all, I would say Severino's the least sought after of them. All very interesting guys. A lot of astute dynasty guys are trying hard to get Rasmussen. I think they can see the potential for a big breakout year for him. McKenzie, Green, and Barrios were all highly drafted, highly touted guys. Barrios struggled. Luckily, McKenzie was able to, slowly build and get better and better. But of these guys, Ty, I would say if you had to pick one for the next 5 years to be really consistent, I'm going to say it's Tristan McKenzie. I feel like you're probably on the Rasmussen side. Is that right?
Rasmussen probably is the highest floor. I would have said Barrios. I think there's a bounce back here. To touch on that 43rd rank last year, Robbie, I think for all those box score junkies out there, like you're not going to see at the end of the season. We've talked about this a bunch. Like you're not going to see what Barrios did in some of his games. Like in some of the games last year, he was as good as anybody in Major League Baseball. And then in other games, he was bad as anybody. And if you watch the local media around the Jays, which we do, a lot of them talked about they can't figure out what he was tipping. They doesn't make sense because his stuff is too good. His fastball is too good. It doesn't make sense for him to be getting hurt the way he did last year. I agree. Like he was getting beat up on pitches that he shouldn't get beat up on. So I'm expecting him to bounce back there. I'm going to die on the can't buy Tristan McKenzie bandwagon here. So I can't even commit to that as a thought. Hunter Green is intriguing for me in this group. Like there's just so much good here. Like I didn't honestly expect him to be as good of a pro as he was. And if it wasn't for the fact that Cincinnati sucks, he probably would have been better. But like Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green 1-2 That's a punch, right? And I don't think people really recognize just how good that is yet. And they've got a couple guys in the stable coming in Cincinnati, both on the pitching side and on the offensive side. Like Cincinnati is like the next wave of what Seattle's doing. Like they've kind of built that rotation, and then the players are kind of coming behind it. They're one signing away, right? Like, go ahead, Robbie.
I just further down the line, I've got a potential ace amongst the Cincinnati starters who nobody is getting hyped up with yet. Brendan Williams was one of the guys who everybody was excited, who came over and then regressed last year. I think he's going to stabilize and be just fine. Maybe not the dominant guy he was in 2021, but I think he can be a good major leaguer. Jose Acuna is the 20-year-old who came over last year in the trade with, I think it was Naquin, went to the Mets, and Acuna came back. He had a .938 whip, a 2.91 ERA, 83 strikeouts in 65 innings at A-ball. And he was playing that at 19 and then turned 20. So already a 19-year-old in A-ball not getting blown up is a good thing. This is a former J2 guy, I believe, who has, I think, 0% rostered on Fun Tracks. That's Fantrax, everybody. And I'm looking to pick him up in a dynasty league in 40 picks when I'm up next.
Well, and the reality is, like, people just don't realize how good Cincinnati's farm team just got. Like, they got deep. Like, you've got the stalwarts at the top: Ellie De La Cruz, Novelli Marte, Cam Collier, the Brandon Williamson that you mentioned. Then you get Spencer Steer and Sal Stewart and Chase Petty on the pitching side, Connor Phillips. Like, they got deep really, really fast in the trades that they made. And then you add some flyers, like you said, you know, Christian Encarnacion Strand, who they got in the what's the guy that went to Minnesota?
Sonny Gray.
Tyler Mahle.
Mahle deal, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a sneaky guy that absolutely destroyed baseballs in the minor leagues last year. So like he's their 14th ranked prospect. Go look at his stat line and try to figure out how he's 14th. That should tell you a little bit about how deep that system is. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff here, Robbie. When you bet on 100 green, like you're going to see that benefit down the road here. So, jumping ahead here, 46 through 50, Tony Gonsolin, who had a phenomenal season last year that ended short with a little bit of injury. Chris Bassett, the New Toronto Blue Jay, Lance Lynn, Josiah Gray, and Nestor Cortez. Robbie, you had Lance Lynn unranked, which I think was a mistake, but
no, it wasn't.
Oh wow, that's ice cold. Lance Lynn's
he's 35. That's all, Ty. He's 35, and he's not. Well, he's not Verlander. He's not Scherzer. He's just like,
yeah, but he's gonna get the Vaseline on the arm now.
Well, exactly. He's turning round. That's what's happening with him as he's aging. He's just becoming a ball that you'll be able to roll off the mound. I just feel like we have 1 year left of Lance Lynn, and I also feel, and I'm, you know, go ahead, like roast me if he has a top 30 year or a top 30 finish this year, but I just don't see the point for dynasty in investing anything at all in Lynn. To me, he's the type of guy who I won't roster because I refuse to give up any type of prospect that I have any affection for, because I just don't know that Lance Lynn's going to come in and help my fantasy team. So that could change in July, but that's just for the end of the year. That's all it is. So
he's a really interesting one because he got a team option for next year, Robbie, that I could see them declining because of the age, because they'll free up some money to spend, right? He's got 2 years at 38 with the, I don't know what the team option, I got to imagine the team option's more than the, whatever that is, 17, 18 and a half mil or whatever, 19 mil, sorry. That is a year. So I got to imagine the team option's like 21 a year or something like that. So like they might say, listen, we can free up 21, sign a pitcher, and then dump something else into the international market or, whatever. But I could see if Chicago gets off to a slow start again this year, which I think is doubtful barring injuries. But if they did, I could see Lance Lynn be traded at the deadline with the team option.
As the like asset to, yeah.
That's an interesting one in that group. Nestor Cortez, I'm way back, Robbie. I very much am out on Nestor Cortez. I think he got away with the arm angle crap last year for a little bit. And that's just not going to last. Like there's like three guys in the history of baseball that have been able to get away with that for a prolonged period of time. So I think there's a 0% chance that Cortez repeats what we saw last year. And I will die on that hill. And if he has a great season, I will pat him on the back and give him a high five if he can jump that high.
I was just gonna say you should shave. You should do the Cortez mustache if he has a top 30 finish.
No, not doing it. Not doing
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say show up to the surf draft in 2024 with a Cortez mustache if he's a top 30.
I'm hoping my jersey gets here in time for that draft. I'm not sure it's going to make it.
A couple weeks away.
Yeah.
So you've got Cortez. Sorry, not you, but Cortez is at 50 for us, and you've got him ranked 68th. I've got him just outside the top 30, but we are opposite again on Jesus Luzardo, 25-year-old, but I am on the 72 end of it and you are in the mid 30s end of it. Now, I'm just not buying into it. I think there's been too many people trying to use too many advanced stats, which I've harped on in years past about, there's a way to make a case for anybody if you really want to. If you want to, die on the hill through, a data point or a spreadsheet, you can. But if you actually watch how somebody pitches, watch how they go and manage themselves in game, you can get a different feel for it. I'm just not buying Luzardo to become a really successful pitcher. And again, I want these guys to do good. We all do, but they don't all do it. And for me, putting my dynasty dollars into Luzardo is not going to get me where I want to go. Jameson Taillon now has a 4-year contract with the Yankees. With the Cubs. He's at 52 for us. After stabilizing with the Yankees last year, I'm excited to, and hopefully he's healthy. I'm excited to see him succeed later in his career. At 53, Cal Quantrill with Cleveland. It's a little bit of Cleveland magic. It's a little bit of the fact that he's a Canadian. The guy should be able to produce 5 years starting major league pitcher. The guy of biggest concern here is the next one, Mike Soroka with Atlanta, who at 25 is coming back, hoping to be happy and healthy. And you know what, Ty? He's already got a little discomfort in spring training, and that is sad. At 55, Rosny Contreras with Pittsburgh. Tough road to hoe, like we talked about with a couple of the Cincinnati Reds pitchers. It's going to be very difficult to get wins to be a fantasy asset when your team is not going to put you in a position to have 10 on the year. You got to fight through it, and you've got to get ground ball outs. And I think Contreras can do it, and he's going to be a slow burn to get better and better. This to me is an absolute watch list. One of the first trades you could be making in your dynasty leagues into May could be getting a guy like Contreras who might start out slow. It might look a little rough. The line doesn't look good. And maybe you've picked up some type of a flyer that you don't think has the longevity of Contreras. That's a great deal to make. He's 21 years old.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that one in terms of the watch, Robbie. I'm not going to buy now because the hype train's too high. I want to see him get ripped in the first couple months of the year, and then I'm with you. I'm going into the Sharks den there. The other guys in this group are kind of interesting. Soroka, I mean, this is a classic. We're a playoff team. We're not going to rush a guy back from injury type play, right? You're going to run a guy out, and we've seen Anthopoulos do this in Toronto, like run some nobody out as SP5 for the first month, take their wear and tear, and then ship them off, right? And I could see that being the case here in Atlanta. I don't know who that's going to be off the top of my head, but I think this is going to be a slow roll for Soroka because they want to control his innings. So they're starting to tell the narrative of, this and that. He's going to have extended spring, and then he's going to go out on a rehab, and then he's going to come up in mid-May, right? Pitch 170 innings if he's healthy and be done with it. So that's the best case scenario. Now, the rest of this group, like the Jesus litter for me, Robbie, is an easy debate. The whip last year, 1.037. Like that's pretty good. And for a guy that spent the first couple of years of his eliteness with control issues, I mean, that's a huge tip in the right direction. Lefty, power arm. There's only a handful of these guys in all of baseball, and that infield defense got even better. So we might see a sub 1 ER or a whip here. And in the ERA, I think could dip sub 3 like this. The Miami rotation could be the best in baseball. Like I'm not going to bank on that. I'm just saying it could be, right? And nobody's saying that out loud anywhere.
You just did.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
You heard it here first, folks.
But like, you look at that group, like what makes you say that it's not possible? Right?
Well, Max Fried, Kyle Wright, Spencer Strider, have an argument to be made in Atlanta with Charlie Morton and Ian Anderson's the wild card, and we're going to talk about him shortly. But I love Miami's potential. 100% I do. It's just like it hasn't been able to come together in practice for them as a team. And when I very quickly did look after we chatted about the potential shortstop, it looks like it's a Joey Wendell position to lose with Groshans up as well. Yeah. So, and then I guess Luis Ariz is not going to be first base. They're going to let Garrett Cooper try it out, and then Ariz will be like a second baseman, which is that's fine. He's a versatile guy anyway. But last year he kind of settled in at first and then won a batting championship. So I don't know why you wouldn't just leave him alone. But whatever.
Yeah, but that's just because they had other guys on that infield that were way better up the middle than Ariz. So like I can see Ariz and Wendell just spelling off other positions throughout the season. I think you might see Grosjean start in the minors and then come up, but I do think it's going to be his job by the end of the year. Joey Wendell's just not the same guy that he was in Tampa.
Right.
I just think a bench bat period. But like just to finish off the rotation, like if Johnny Cueto's your worst guy in your rotation, I mean, like in terms of stuff, that's pretty ridiculous. You add Sixto Sanchez as a flyer right now, a guy that could have ace upside, and then Max Meyer coming in behind it. Like, there's just so much here. I think it's worth a debate. I do agree Atlanta's there. There's other teams in the conversation. I'm just saying the chips could fall.
It's
Marlins
Seattle.
Could be there. That's all.
Seattle has the best.
I'm going to argue against that because those are all very real possibilities. But
I'm just busting your nuts.
Please do. Please do. Heading to 56 through 60, we've got Ian Anderson, who is one of those guys that could solidify that best rotation championship for the Braves. A guy that had a terrible season last year, got dumped back down. And just I'm still a believer. I'll always believe in change-up guys as high floor guys. It's just a great way to have a safe ROI, I guess. And then next on the list here is a reliever, Michael Kopech. I've got him at 82, Robbie. The upside's here. I just have the concerns of control. I have the concerns of durability. It's just like the thing I like about Hunter Green, who I think is a very reasonable comparable here. It's so easy and clean mechanically for Hunter Green, and Kopech just has to work so much harder to generate the velocity. So like arm injuries is the big red flag here for me. And he could pull Chris Sale. He could have 12 years of no issues whatsoever, but the alternative could happen, and that's the reason I've got him as far back. I'm just not willing to bet. Same way you're not betting on some of the other guys. But Jose Suarez is a guy that you've got at 42, Robbie. And I actually am surprised I have him as far back as I do at 79. I actually think there's a very sneaky guy here in that rotation out in LA. This is one that, you flagged for me a couple years ago, and I actually think I was higher on him than you were heading into last season. Had a sub 4 ERA last year. I bet you if you asked 100 people that would claim to be experts in baseball or fantasy baseball, they probably wouldn't have pegged that as a sub 4 guy. But, there's still room for improvement. He's still, fairly young. He's, what is he right now? Just 25. He'll play this season entirely at 25. So, still a very, very young guy. Great changeup. I like the upside here, Robbie, and definitely a cheap buy, right? Because he hasn't had any body of work that says this is an expensive buy for him. Matt Manning's my guy, a guy that I think is the Detroit ace at this moment in time, assuming Eduardo Rodriguez continues just to not show up for things, which is just such a wild story no one's talking about. But
I think they're tired of it.
Well, they're sure are.
Year, right? They're tired of it.
Yeah, Pablo Lopez is the last guy here on this list. Just a 2-pitch guy that I can't get into ever. I won't get into him. Minnesota definitely probably gives them some better peripherals, a little bit better ballpark to pitch in, but I don't know. I don't love this one. I'm not touching them. That's that group for me.
Yeah, I feel like Pablo Lopez is kind of like the younger Marcus Stroman, where you want to like hope that he's just going to be really good and do good things. But he's only 27, which is his advantage here because he finished last year at 58 or 48, sorry, in 8x8 rankings. And then, Miami was like, yeah, like he's the guy we can expend. Like he's at peak. We'll move him off. We think there's more with some of these other guys, and we'll hold on to them. So, 61, we've got Tyon Walker with Philly now. Good for him. Was able to get himself back. He's only going to be 30 to play this year. And I say only because I feel like we've known him forever. Eric Lauer, who's like really done a great job of stabilizing himself as a major league starting pitcher with Milwaukee, finished last year at 47th. Joe Ryan with Minnesota, who was 50th last year. He'll play this year at 26. And Martin Perez is 64th with Texas. He had a great year last year. He was top 15. He's never done that before. He's only ever before Ty had a stretch of, I think maybe it was, 12 good starts in 2021, I think, and then he dipped down. But maybe that was kind of the start of it for him. That was his first little bit of maybe it was 2019. Anyway, he had like a brief period of time where it was like a little pocket of success, and he had previously been gored by a bull. So the guy's lived, he has lived, but he's now 31. He's got a 1-year contract with Texas, and I'm not banking on it coming through. Obviously, you're in the same camp as me, Ty. He's going to be getting starts. I just don't know how much he's going to be dominating them, but he's going to have a pretty good stat line. It's not going to be dominant, but it's going to be good. So keep that in mind, right? We're talking about the 64th pitcher. This is just outside SP2 rankings for us now. Top 60 would be what we consider to be like an asset to have. Now we're getting into the SP3 range here. And the final guy we'll talk about tonight is 65th, Jordan Montgomery. I mean, love to hate the guy. He's 30. He got traded last year for Harrison Bader. He's now in Montgomery, now in St. Louis, out of the Bronx. And he should be good. Big lefty, right? Just a big body guy with a good team, and wins should be there, and stat lines and fun things, but he's not going to win you a league.
I hate everything about this group except for Jordan Montgomery. There's just
nobody
in this
group, right?
Yeah,
it's like an upsettingly effective group though, because 4 of these guys were top 50 8x8 guys last year, but 3 of them were in the 40s. So,
but they're just like painful because it's like one of those ones where it's like you're starting them on Sunday and you're terrified, right? Like you just don't know it's going to be good or
in a head by head with these guys going up.
So like Jordan Montgomery is the safest one in that group. He pitched with 3.11 ERA in St. Louis, Robbie, and I think we're going to see more of that this year. I think we might see sub 3 from Jordan Montgomery this year. I think there's going to be some Cy Young votes, which is kind of a bold statement for him. This is a guy that I could not figure out for a couple years, like as a Yankee pitching against the Jays all the time. I'm like, why do they not hit this guy? What do they not? And he just kept doing it. And then I realized like he's just such a tunnel guy. Like his pitches line up. Everything kind of comes out of the same spot. He's just an effective starting pitcher, right? He's an SP2. He's been buried in New York because they do this with their pitchers. Unless you're a big free agent, they just make you an SP5 and they don't talk about you. And they've been doing it for years and years and years.
Well, Severino, they tried to promote and then he got hurt.
Yep.
Right.
But they're international guys. They do like, I'm going to group them into the free agent because the El Duques and those guys over the years have definitely fit that mold as well. But if you look at just their homegrown American guys, like they almost
Hughes,
never
right?
like, yeah.
Is that the name I'm thinking?
Phil,
it was
Phil
like
Hughes.
Phil Hughes,
Schmidt is a guy that's there now.
Clark Schmidt, and he's waiting. Yep.
Yeah, right. Like there's a long history of this kind of guy that just is forgotten. I don't know what Cashman knows or doesn't know, but it's been a consistent pathway for them. So, I just think there's upside here. I think it's a really nice buy. He's in about the best situation he could be for an upside SP3. So you got to like that. But top 65, Robbie, I think pretty good. I don't think we had a ton of misses. Obviously, there's things that we're going to look back on next year and go, oh, why did we do that? But that's why we bank on it as 5 years, because there's going to be, for most of the guys in this top 50, one bad season in 5. That's just the way she goes. And a lot of people get lost on that. They have a little bit of a recency bias, and that's why we do it over the 5 years. So you can watch and learn and see some of those patterns. And that's why, Robbie, a lot of these guys that are moving up this list, we're like, hey, we kind of told you these guys were coming. If you're a longtime listener, you probably own a couple of those guys, and well, cheers to that. And we'll wait for our bottles of bourbon and stuff to show up in the mail. But until then, we'll just continue to do good work here, Robbie. So next episode, we're gonna get a little bit into the weeds. We're going to have more disagreement. There's going to be short, long-term guys that you and I fight over a little bit.
Definitely.
And then we're going to throw a couple flyers out there at you. So that's the second half of the SP. And then we're going to move into the relievers, which is always a fun little category for us at the back end, Robbie. But it's a great spot to leave it. And until next time, it's been Robbie and Tyler here on Dingers.